much talked about Dior Sauvage now has officially a flanker, I guess, and it's the Dior Sauvage Eau De Parfum. I've had this now for 2 or 3 days, and I need to start this off by saying that firstly, I am a fan of the original Sauvage. This is quite a divisive fragrance. Some people either enjoy it a lot or people just do not like it, and that's completely fair enough. And in some respects, I can understand why a lot of people don't like it. However, when this Eau De Parfum came out, I decided that I was going to get it because I enjoyed the Sauvage or the Toilette. What I was trying to decide was whether I would do a full test and then a proper thorough review. In other words, wear this on several days and try and wear it in different conditions and just do an in-depth kind of analysis of it. But after a couple of days now of wearing it, I realise it's probably going to be more useful to do a side-by-side comparison with the new Eau De Parfum and its older Eau De Toilette brother. Now, what I've done is I've sprayed on my skin, both at the same time doing a skin comparison, but I've also done a comparison on paper strips as well. And there's a couple of interesting things that have come out of that, but the bottom line is if you already really like the original Sauvage, I think you will really like the Eau De Parfum. If you already do not like the original Sauvage, you may like the Eau De Parfum depending on your reasons for not liking the Eau De Toilette. So I will say this now, if it is the general smell, the general scent of the original Sauvage that you do not like, I would be surprised then if you would like the Eau De Parfum, because one thing about the Eau De Parfum is the scent DNA itself is in essence still Sauvage, and there are just some slightly refined things about the Eau De Parfum that do make it slightly different, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. Let's start off with the opening. So what I noted from the opening was that with the original Eau De Toilette, I got on my skin a much more prominent citrus opening with the Eau De Toilette than I did with the Eau De Parfum. So the bergamot was quite prominent in the opening, whereas in the Parfum it is still there, but it's kind of toned down by whatever spice they're using, probably some anise. So it already starts off mellow, but not weaker, if that makes sense. So you do not get the same sharpness that you get in the Eau De Toilette in the opening. And on paper strip, compared to my skin, this was just amplified, I found. And it's probably because the top notes don't burn off quite as quickly when you're spraying them on strips. Just before we go on, the bottles are basically identical. I think there's a bit of a rosier tinge in this bottom here, but they're magnificent bottles. This wonderful magnetic cap that clicks into place, and the sprayer on these things is probably the best sprayers I've experienced. Oh, that's lovely. So on paper strips, everything is more amplified. Now, where I found it interesting was about probably 10-15 minutes after the opening. I find once they progress through the heart of the fragrance that at this particular stage, they are actually pretty much identical. Now, once you get past that, and I've sprayed these on probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago now. So this is the Eau De Toilette and the Parfum. What I began to notice, particularly in the dry down, is that the original seemed to be more diffusive. In other words, for me, it seemed to project a bit better, and for want of a better description, seemed to fill the space a bit more. Whereas the Parfum stayed softer and slightly sweeter, probably due to the vanilla. But all the time, both have that prominent, ambroxan smell that the original's so well known for. And one of the main reasons I like the original is because I actually quite like how that ambroxan smells. But that's where they start to differ. A friend of mine, Nick, on social media, mentioned to me that he first sniffed this before I got a bottle, and his description basically is spot on, in that if you think about the differences between Terre d'Hermès EDT and the EDP, which they're both wonderful scents, and I love the EDP. They're both unmistakably Terre d'Hermès, but that EDP has got some rounded edges, smoother, more refined, less sharp, and the EDP versions appear to the nose have less projection. Now it seems basically that with Sauvage the same is true. The EDT still seems louder, it still seems slightly sharper. You feel it in your nostrils a little bit more than you do the EDP. But having said that, just smelling this dry down in the EDP, it is a touch sweeter, like has been described, a bit rounder, more refined. However, they are, when you're still smelling them on the skin, it would appear that the EDP sits a little bit closer to the skin than the EDT. And from what I understand, this is not uncommon when we're talking about those types of concentration. I'm not saying it's common across the board, but it seems to me that a lot of fragrances that have both an EDT and EDP version, it seems to me that EDT is deceptively bolder in personality than most EDPs are. What I can tell you is they both have outstanding longevity on the skin. I'm just going to smell these on the strips again. So this is the EDT. And yeah, I think the vanilla aspect of this new EDP does come out a little bit more in the dry down, but they're not so different. So where the difficulty might lie is that making the decision about whether you go for one or the other, or whether you think one is redundant over the other. Now, personally speaking, I think I could live with just one of these. It's just a matter of deciding which one, because I think I like them equally, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that the EDP version might be probably a little bit more versatile in the respect that you could probably wear it in more situations. And I know that sounds strange because Sauvage, the original Sauvage, gets criticized for being generic, which to me means, it smells like everything else, you can wear it anywhere, and it is versatile. I think probably an older guy might lean towards the EDP just because it's not as loud, it's a little bit more modest, and to me still smells great and has got great performance. So there's honestly not enough difference for me to say one is better than the other, because as I said at the beginning, I do really like the EDT. Now, if it is, like I said, if it is the general smell of Sauvage that you didn't like, I don't know you're going to be won over by the EDP. If it's that, what some people describe as that harshness, that chemical harshness that the original Sauvage has to your nose, then it might be worth checking the Eau De Parfum, because you might find that you like it if you don't mind how it smells. So that's really my take. If you really want me to do a thorough in-depth review of the EDP, let me know. But I think I kind of, you know, after a few days of smelling this, you kind of know enough to distinguish the difference. And I think the EDP is a winner, and the cynical side of me says it's just another money-making machine for Christian Dior. It's just another way to sell pretty much the same scent. Certainly not its own scent, you know, like a completely different scent. It's definitely a flanker, in fact an EDP flanker of the original. But again, I like the original and I really like this one. So that's my take on Dior Sauvage Eau De Parfum. I hope that was useful for you. If you've tried it, let me know. I think we're pretty lucky here in Australia. We got hold of this pretty early compared to the rest of the world. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.